learned together in the previous class. So who is going to tell me what did we talk about in the previous class? Anyone? What do you faintly remember from the last class we had? Need of perspective? Need of perspective in what? Prasad? So there are multiple things we can have perspective on. So need of perspective on what exactly? Different perspective of problems, yes. So different ways to look at the problem, definitely. We looked at how to reframe a problem, because when we try to reframe a problem or when we see that a problem can be looked at in different angles, most often we recognize that there are multiple solutions. Choosing the right problems, importance of understanding problem in depth. That's right. Are we solving the right problem? And you will tell me when you are doing the assignment on software engineering, what do you feel about if it's the valid problem or not? And we will be having a discussion around this in the lab sessions also. So anything else anyone wants to say? Avoiding rushing into solutions, definitely. And so at that moment, what do you think are the costs associated with rushing into solution or not being able to systematically define a problem? What are the costs associated with it? Improper solutions. So yes, so if your client asks you to develop a particular software and somehow your team has not been able to understand the solution, understand the problem, and they have not been able to connect with the client, so improper solution is there, wastage of resources, time wastage, time and money are wasted, and ultimately the reputation of the software developers and the company they belong to also goes into shams. So that is why next time when the client wants to have another software, they might not approach the company to develop their particular software. And that is how, so you see, do not always think about software engineering as a narrow thing. It's an interdisciplinary thing and it's connected to lots of things. It's definitely connected to customer relationships, long-term sustainable development, sustainable competitive advantage of a company, and also your growth. So, and all these things are interlinked, and unless and until our basics and fundamentals are clear, it is likely that error may be made in some situations or another if we are operating in an isolated universe and are not brainstorming and talking and again testing what we are creating. All right. So these are some of the costs associated with improper understanding of the problem that leads to improper solutions or the solutions that may not work in future. So in the last lecture, we had talked about the reframing of the problem. And there were a couple of problems we had discussed. In this lecture, I would want to bring your attention to few of the practices that we can follow as a team and as individual to look at the problem from different angles. So before starting, I just want to make sure, am I audible properly? Is there any noise from my side?
No, ma'am, you're audible.
Okay, thank you. So I hope you are able to see these slides.
Yes, ma'am.
So basically, we will be discussing about 7 practices of reframing a problem. So I just want to show you the previous slide we stopped at. Uh, Practices for effective problem reframing, the importance of problem reframing. So before starting off with problem reframing, uh, who is going to tell me the importance of reframing a problem? Why should we bother at all about reframing a problem? So I'm aware that in your innovation module, you had worked in groups, and even though you were working on the same set of problems, students were thinking in different dimensions about how to solve or how they were looking at the problems. So in software engineering domain, why do you think is there a need? Why are we even talking about reframing a problem or the potential of it? Yes, to see the problem from different perspective. We might ignore the root of the problem. Yes, we can come up with better and more cost-effective solutions when the problem is reframed. Yes, so there is always a possibility of cost-effective solutions. So when we try to look at a problem from different lens, we might realize that there may not be a complex way to solve the problems. There might be an actually a simplified and much more elegant way to solve the problem. And it definitely helps us to obtain a broader vision. And second thing is there's something called as root cause analysis of a problem. And when we iteratively ask why, so ultimately it leads us to reframing of a problem in such a manner that we can actually go to the root cause of the problem, because solving problem at that level really has a potential to sustain the solution. And a solution that is sustainable over the long period of time mostly saves us money and finance also. As Jay has mentioned, cost effectiveness, broader perspective gets to know what actually person is feeling and why he or she is finding it as a problem. So even in software development domains, all of us have this habit of putting our let's fix it cap whenever a problem comes up. Whenever a problem comes up, instead of analyzing the problem, really having a good look at it, think of it like as a captain of a cricket team. When the team is losing, the captain really thinks about the problem from a wider perspective and then uses multiple methods to solve that particular problem. Sometimes it clicks, sometimes it doesn't click. And similarly, I'm not saying you need to reframe the problem always, but just see, am I missing something here? Is my team missing some crucial detail about this particular problem when I'm trying to solve it? Because it always happens that, if something is not considered in the beginning of understanding of the problem, it almost comes back to bite us in later stages. And that is why investing good amount of time, having a holistic 360 view of the problem is actually important. It saves us a lot of efforts in the long term. So I hope you are reasonably convinced that there is an importance of trying to understand the problem and reframe it. And having said that, the natural question that arises is, okay, how do we go about that? So there are certain established practices, and I will be discussing it today in the lecture. So first is you have to establish legitimacy. Like really creating a conversational space among your team members wherein a legitimate discussion about the problem can take place. An open dialogue and open communication can take place wherein, judgments are not there about anything that anybody speaks. Rather, we try to see from the person's perspective that where he or she is coming from. Because when we have that safe space in which we can really talk without being afraid that I will be judged or evaluated for what I say, unless and until a team has that kind of environment, that legitimate kind of environment, it's very difficult that people will be, able to speak. And in a team, if people are not feeling really free to talk about their view of the problem, then there are some very serious problems that need to be taken care of within the team, even before the team can work on the solutions. So in your respective groups, when you're working in the groups, make sure that everyone feels, that they have a legitimate right to speak and voice out their opinions without being afraid of any judgments or things like that. The second thing and very important thing that I have myself experienced in my own experience in designing softwares or trying to solve a problem is bringing outsiders into the discussion. Now, most often what happens is that, when we are trying to solve a particular problem that has been given to us on a paper and we are reading it consistently and we are trying to scratch our heads and try to get a solution, sometimes what happens is it's very easy to get lost in the problem and lose perspective. So to broaden our perspective, sometimes we need to discuss problems with our other team members, and even sometimes with people who may not be related at all to the software space or to the computer science space, because mostly these are the people who look at problems from the common sense point of view, the real life point of view. And when you really bring such kind of perspective into your discussion, trust me, your discussion on even software development becomes much, much rich. And there is an aspect of software engineering which is not really talked about. It's called as ethnographic studies or qualitative studies. Before a company launches any product, any app, or any new feature in the market, they almost always do research. They try to research about the customer needs, what they are not satisfied with. See, these people are not at all involved in the space, but the team in the organization, the software team has found out a problem. Now they are trying to validate the problem. They are trying to bring the impression of outsiders into the discussion. And what happens is they might open up. So let me give you a very simple example from my own experience. So once I was working on a research related to creating a platform for exercise for the physically challenged people. So normally when we go into parks or gyms, we usually don't see people with physical disabilities. That does not mean that they do not have importance of exercise in their lives. They do. So I was trying to identify that whether technology can be used to improve the way these people can do exercise, because normal exercises may be very tough for them. So as a result of which, I thought that let us talk to these people directly. And when I went on to talk to these people with my own so-called agenda of exercises for the physically challenged people, and with having this software and computer science in the back of my mind, I was really shocked when I talked to these people. Now, because physical fitness and exercise was not the first priority according to them, which a supposed software developer was trying to impose upon them, according to his or her own mindset. Because sometimes we come with a problem and we think the way we think about the problem has to be the way someone else thinks about the problem, and we sort of try to impose our problems, our view of the problems, and needless to say, even sometimes our solutions. So what happened in that discussion was that a completely new insight emerged. That, can you imagine what was their major problem for these people? It was not physical fitness. What was the major problem that these people were facing? Can anybody guess? Any guesses? So are you following the scenario? Okay, being with people. So are you following the situation in which this is happening? You are going with a particular problem in your mind to create a solution for a set of people, and then you talk to these people. But what emerged was that stigma of social interaction, yes. So what emerged was, and it should not shock any one of us, and when I got the answer, my response was, of course, how could I not even think of it? So the major problem they were facing was of, psychological well-being, which we call as mental health or depression or stress. Now, if you look at the technological space, there are ample number of apps these days which focus on improving the mental health of people in general. There have been chatbots and so many things. In fact, one of your assignments is also on mental health. So when I talked with these people, and they were not even the outsiders, they were actually the recipient of my solution. And so that really led me to broaden my lens. But they did not give me the solutions, obviously, but they provided me inputs. So when you try to bring outsiders into the discussion, you know, try to look at their involvement as, opportunity for them to provide you with a wider perspective of the problem. So if, for example, you might be working on one of these cases or any other minor project that you're working on, and you might discuss it with your siblings or your father or your mother, and or even your grandparents, and they will give you a completely different way to look at that problem that I may not have thought of, you may not have thought of, and maybe tomorrow you would want to come and discuss that aspect with me as well. So try to, whenever you are stuck in a problem, so mostly when we are stuck in a problem, that's when we move out of our team to discuss, to find people with whom we can discuss things. Because in our circle, we are not able to identify a better way to approach that problem. So that's when we move out. And mostly this is a very common pattern that happens. So try to bring outsiders in the discussions whenever you have in your software development meetings. Whenever you are stuck, try to gain a different perspective by talking to someone outside of your immediate circle, because that will again help you to reframe the problem or some aspect of the problem. And they may not be experts on the situation, but their job is not to give you the solutions, but to show you another way to look at the problem. And in fact, there has been a scientific research also in this by this particular researcher, and he found out that the most useful input tends to come from people who understand but are not fully part of our world. And that is what exactly happened in my previous research, and then I had to completely turn it around and focus on the mental health aspect of it. And that was really an insight for me personally. The third practice is that, whenever meetings happen, we brainstorm, we talk, but we hardly document. And sometimes when we ask each member of the team to provide their own definitions of problem, to get people's definitions of the problem, then it becomes much more clear. So, okay, my understanding is this, her understanding is this, and then we can discuss on what is being written, ponder over it, and then discuss it again. So sometimes, most often in the corporate sectors in IT, there are regular stand-up meetings. People say things, but hardly things are written. And sometimes anything that literally is imprinted in our minds is something that we write. So try to make it a practice that when you're working in your groups, solving the problem, before even thinking of the solution, try to gauge that whether your understanding of the problem, how far is it from the understanding of this person in your team, and make it in written, maybe in 2-3 lines, that hey, what do you understand, what do you think is expected from us in this project, because that will lead to a much more richer way for you guys to interact with each other and to solve the problem. So let's say an example to establish. So I want to explain to you why getting written definition sometimes is important, not always, but sometimes it's important. So basically, by written, I mean you need to be very clear on what is a particular person's definition of a problem in your team. N number of people may be looking at one problem in N number of ways. And we really need to have a consensus on what we are trying to solve. Because if there is no broader understanding of what is expected or what we are trying to solve, it is a given that there are bound to be conflicts. Conflicts are a good thing because they lead to a better understanding and more clarity. But at least you guys as a team should be anchored, knowing what exactly the problem you're solving, the core problem. So to substantiate that, the management team, for example, in an organization says there is lack of innovation in the products and the features that the developers are making, and that is the feedback that they may have got from the customers. But if you were to ask from each member of the management, they might say these things like employees are not motivated to innovate, or maybe employees do not understand the urgency of the situation. They may not have the right skill set, management's team members say, and customers are not willing to pay for the innovation. So see, the problem was lack of innovation. But if you ask each member of the team the causes that they attribute to this problem of lack of innovation are different. So what do you understand from this? What is happening in this case? What exactly do you see from this example? Anyone? So through this example, what conclusion can you make? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So from this, it's very clear that the importance of, because see, if each member of the management team is saying different things, then definitely the solution that they will propose will be different. And when it comes to software development, because software development is very precisely about identifying that problem. Most of the times, we as engineers are so focused on developing a feature or adding a rather new feature to the app that sometimes we lose track of what exactly the problem we are solving. And as a homework, I will give you this thing to ask, to really Google that how many softwares are really successful, what is the success rate of softwares in the world, and what is the reason that most of the softwares do not see light of the day, or even if they do, why can't they go for longer haul? And this is something that you should really try to understand. So Tarun says conflict comes when we think the problem is different by different people. So just to add to that, what Tarun is saying, I would say that conflict comes when we deny the other person this right to think differently from us. If we knew and we know and we accept that the other person is bound to think differently than us, then maybe we can celebrate the differences in our thinking and then use it to enrich our understanding, rather than using those difference of opinions as a boundary line where I am here and you are there. So conflict is basically nothing but an opportunity to increase acceptance of the viewpoint of the person. And as I also taught second semester students in the class, that you have to really separate people from the issues. So there are people and there are opinions, there are issues. So when you learn to distinguish people from the issues, then you can really solve the problem rather than getting embroiled in conflicts, even in software development situations. Because trust me, when a new software development takes place and there are some features to be developed, engineers often always suggest different things and it becomes extremely difficult to arrive at a consensus. And until and unless there is a consensus, how will the work proceed? So try to ask each of your team member their own opinions and try to really see where they are coming from, as in what guides or triggers their thought, and then try to use it to make the entire experience of working together richer. The fourth practice, as I've already mentioned, is ask what is missing. So what is missing from the definition of your problem? And it doesn't come right in the first meeting, second meeting, or even what we call as sprints in software engineering domain. It is a iterative process and it is more of a reflection. And in 21st century, one of the skills that is really important from every professional is the ability to think critically, the ability to reflect over what you are reading. It's not only about consuming content or knowledge, but how are you able to reflect on what you're reading? Because that separates innovation and creativity from run-of-the-mill kind of work. So always ask, even when you are working in your groups, always ask, am I missing something? Am I convinced that this is the solution, it would work? Am I convinced of my understanding of the problem, or are we convinced? So what is it that is missing? And so try to include also sense of intuition when you're working with problems. Try to think yourself as the users of your product, consumers of the technology, and then try to see from that point of view. And then it becomes clear in reframing the problem. Maybe some aspect of problem you're not able to see because you are so busy thinking at it from a one point of view that it has become very difficult for you to look at in a different way. So take a time out, take a break, or when you are sleeping, try to think over the problem that you're working on, and then come back to your desk and solve it. The fifth practice of reframing is consider multiple categories. So it essentially says transforming your perception of the problem, as we saw in the story of America's dog adoption problem. Another example in the technology domain could be, so Nickelodeon, I hope all of you know about the Nickelodeon cartoon channel. So do you guys know about Nickelodeon? Okay, yes. So it's a cartoon channel, and they have recently launched an app also. In some time back they were. So they faced a problem. So there was a Nickelodeon Kids app, and the team launched the new app, and they saw that several kids downloaded it. But there was a problem that they were facing. Even though they had downloaded it, but the many people who were using it was not proportional to the download that they had seen. So the teams were scratching their heads that what could possibly go wrong. And then, they dug deeper into the problem. And what they did was, they found out that activating app was complicated. It required kids to log into the household cable TV services. So at this step of the sign up process, most kids dropped out. So basically they were not able to complete the sign up process ultimately to be able to use the services. But so this was the real problem. But according to the experts at Nickelodeon, the problem was something else. So they thought the problem was of usability. So they ran lots of tests on the sign up flow process, how the sign up is progressing. But we could not solve the problem. Nothing really helped. They, literally worked on the sign up flow process to make kids feel that it's more convenient for them, but it didn't really help solve the core of the problem. But what was their problem? So the problem of Nickelodeon team was that they were thinking too narrowly on the issue, something called as the tunnel vision. If you have read the papers that I've shared, this word recurrently comes up in those papers. So the problem at Nickelodeon development team was that they focused on kids' actions during sign-up process, like swipes, clicks, but not how they felt during the sign-up process. And a very important aspect of interacting with any solution, be it app-based or web-based, is how your user, your customer feels about the solution. For example, the hackathon had happened. IIIT Pune conducted the hackathon, and there was this field in which front-end development need to be checked. So again, coming back to the same thing, how user feels about looking at the website or any solution that is proffered to that particular person. So we often think about technical things like swipes, clicks, but when they really dug deeper into how the kids were feeling during the sign-up process, because feeling is ultimately linked to something that is happening in the app, something technical happening, which is triggering a particular response in children, and that is why they're not able to complete the sign-up process. So on deeper discovery, they actually find out that kids felt fearful when the password was requested. And these are very young kids, and password could trigger multiple feelings inside of them of horror and suspicion and things like that. They might be hesitant to ask the password from parents also. So what the company did, they just added a short video saying it's okay to ask parents for the password. And that brought a sigh of relief to the children. So they thought, oh, okay, this is doable, this should be done, and there is nothing wrong in that. And so that element of fear, that element of apprehension was suitably tackled when that short video was added. And what was the result? There was a tenfold increase in the sign-up process. Now, from this scenario, we know the technical thing is happening. We know that solutions are being created. We know the testing is happening. But we cannot really isolate how outsiders think about the problem. Again, coming back to the reframing practice, bring in how outsiders feel about the problem. When we operate in our own theoretical universe, Marvel universe or any other universe, it becomes really, easy to get stuck up in our own thinking loops. And that is why we have to ask multiple categories. Again, keep on asking why this is happening, why this is happening, why this is happening. And that is why research is also a very crucial part of developing any software from the scratch, more so called as the greenfield projects. So from this example, if I may ask you, what is the learning that you take up from the Nickelodeon's Kids app failure and its subsequent success? What is the lesson that you really absorb from this story? So I'm asking you to reflect on the story that you just heard. In fact, it's not a story, it's something that really happened. So if you were to reflect on this, what is it that you understand from this? Again, coming back to the right problem. Yes, perspective of the user. So according to the development team at Nickelodeon, the right problem was something else. It was a sign-up process. It maybe had to do something with clicks, something to do with swipes, but the real problem was something else entirely. Customer sentiments matters a lot, yes, especially when we are developing software. And I have told in the homework for you guys, try to see the failure rate of softwares. So again, the problem was that of feeling, and then again technology came to solve that problem. Technology will always have a very strong hold on solving the problems, provided you are targeting the right problems. And identifying the right problem takes time, research, and sweat. It takes a lot of time to do all kind of things. And that is why when tomorrow, when you are working in some good firms, you will yourself see that things do take a lot of time. So from this reframing practice, what you can learn is you have to think about the way you are thinking. And that is something called as critical thinking, or in this case, we call it metacognition. You really have to be very skeptic of, or in a healthy manner, of the way you are thinking and the way your team members are thinking. And always remembering that it's not important to be right, but to get it right. So hopefully from this example, I have planted this thinking in your minds that, thinking too narrowly about the issue or thinking only from technological point of view may not help us solve the problem, which ultimately the solution has to be delivered by technology in some case it might not. So in software engineering, it's very crucial that you spend time understanding and reframing the problem and trying to see that whether this is actually a technical problem or it's a manifestation of a deeper problem, in which case you work on the root cause of the problem. So in this case, the root cause was not the sign up process. It had nothing to do with swipes, clicks, the user interface, or the speed of the internet or things like that. The issue was very simple. The customer sentiment, the customer or the kids in this case, again, the target is different. So adults would have thought in a different manner about this problem because he or she is a kid. They're obviously less experienced and they don't know how to deal with this. So even in software domain, when you're making a software for a particular set of targets in the customers, these are the things that you need to be careful about. And this is something that even project managers, product managers also consider while launching a product in the market, a software product. So are we clear till here? Any questions till here? Any doubts, confusions? So I'm trying to portray a wider world in front of you. And software engineering is a technical skill. It's important and its fundamentals and applications we will learn. But at the outset, it's important to show you that it is also an element in the wider pipeline of the solutions. And when each of the elements in the pipeline are robust, we can be sure that our solutions will be robust. So the Nickelodeon example can be summarized in this famous law of instrument. It says that give a small boy a hammer and he will find that everything he encounters needs pounding. So it's almost like saying to a hammer, everything is a nail. So when you have this hammer of technology in your hands, don't think everything is a nail. Identify where the nail is, where it is not, and where you find the nail and are absolutely confident about it, then put your hammer very strongly over there. So try to have a wider perspective on the problem. So what was the problem at Nickelodeon? The team members, the developers at Nickelodeon were usability experts. And because of their expertise, they defaulted to thinking that the problem was of usability. And how does this, so there's a strong analogy between this statement and the software development domain as well. To a software engineer, to a technical engineer, everything appears to be a coding problem. Is it right or not? So don't default to thinking only in coding or that kind of language. Think about the problem from the whole 360-degree view. Then try to identify where the technology fits absolutely well, where you are confident that this will work, and try to segregate the problems that technology can solve and the technology cannot solve. Mostly in first year, when we do projects, students are very enthusiastic about creation of apps, creation of web development projects. And for every problem, they have one solution: let's create an app. Let's create an app. So it takes a little bit of time to explain to them, again, this law of instruments, that you have to be very precise in identifying the exact problems that the technology can solve, and also think about the potentialities that the technology can solve. So here also, Nickelodeon people were quite experts. They knew what they were doing. They were testing. But somehow they defaulted to thinking, again, that the problem was of usability. That means they were trying to see, but they saw only what they wanted to see, not what was there. So there are two things: the actual problem and the problem that we think we are solving. And there might be some gap between these two if we do not delve deeper into the problem. And that is why brainstorming, talking, taking into outsiders' opinion, really spending time thinking of the problem is significant before we even talk about the solutions and creating the solutions. Then the sixth practice of reframing is analyzing positive exceptions. As a team, we can look for instances when the problem did not occur. So mostly in software industry, what happens is that a particular issue replicates in a particular mobile device manufactured in a particular country, but it is not replicating in other countries, or devices manufactured in other countries. So that alone is a very important insight, because then it narrows down the problem domain, and then you can focus on that particular problem domain to solve it. So again, identifying what was different about the solution, why the problem did not replicate or why it did not occur. And from that also we can gain insights. And from these bright spots where the problem does not replicate, we can obtain certain solutions. The last practice of reframing a problem is So we should question the objective. So why after all are we solving this problem? Is it really important to solve? Is it really worth my efforts? Because you are going to invest your time, energy in solving a particular problem. So it is only common sense to ask whether the problem is actually a problem or the objective of the problem really needs to be solved. So if you read the three cases and you tomorrow come and tell me that I don't see any point in solving this particular problem, I will really listen to you and talk to you that why do you think so? And that is extremely important because unless and until we believe in what we are solving, we may not be able to create great solutions. And there's a difference between a good solution and a great solution. And the understanding of the problem in depth really differentiates the two. And also the technical skills of the staff to solve the problem. So a very simple example, but it from a general point of view, that there are two people in the room and one wants to get fresh air and the other wants to avoid the cold air that comes from the window. So the other person wants to keep the window open, but the other one wants to keep them closed. Now what's the solution? So obviously the solution cannot come from two people who are already in conflict. You have to involve a third person over here. And when you involve a third person over here, they might suggest that you can open the window from the other room. So if the door is open, a fresh air, gush of fresh air can come and solve the problem for both of the people. So basically, I'm trying to say that another way to reframe the problem is paying attention to the objectives of the parties involved. In the software domain, it becomes your stakeholders and your clients who are going to receive your solution. And if you are a diligent software developer, you would also look at the opinions of the customers who are going to use that solution. I mean, that may not be your job, that may be stakeholders' job, but even if at development stage, you can have a brief idea about how people who are going to use your solution think about it. And as I've mostly talked in entrepreneurship class for the second semester students, that sitting in our classrooms, in our university classroom, it's very easy to think and operate in our technological universe saying that this is the solution, but we go out and talk to people. We literally have a different perspective, as I also showed from the research on physically challenged people. So really try to pay attention to the objectives of the parties involved in your software project. That would be, what are you trying to gain from the problem? Again, in sense, what are you really trying to solve? What is the objective of solving this problem? How will it really help the people who will receive this solution? What is the potential of actually launching this solution in the marketplace tomorrow? These are the questions you should be talking about, discussing in your classes among your team members, because then only you will be able to see the importance of investing your energies in solving a particular problem, and then you can really excel at that. So it was also shown in the story of the rescuer of dogs, who showed us that shifting objective from increasing adoption to keeping more pets with original owners. When you shift, so there's a quote, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And same also applies to software developing domains. Any questions so far? Is it too noisy from my end?
No, ma'am.
Okay, because there are consistent storms over here. You might be aware. Okay. So any questions you have asked, you want to ask so far, or any confusions you want clarity on? So I can see that you have made groups, and I'm sure you will be talking among your groups also during the meetings. Try to really spend time with your groups, trying to understand that whether your understanding of the problem, what's the difference between your understanding of the problem and the understanding of the other member of the problem, because you are going to work together for the next 10 weeks on this solution, and it is really crucial that you talk among each other and try to see. And at the same time, when you are discussing these things among your groups and you find that there is a dead end you cannot resolve, maybe you can talk to me. We can have a meeting and discuss together what is it that you're stuck on, and then we can build clarity on that. So the reason that I have not, I have put very brief description of the problems is I want you to really think about it in your own particular manners, and then develop your own understanding of the problem and provide the solution. So the conclusion is that reframing takes time and practice to get good at it. Definitely, you need to talk to people also. It is not always easy to reframe a problem, but it is quite effective. And this is not just a statement I'm making. You have seen examples from the case studies that have been shared in this lecture, like the slow elevator problem, America's dog adoption problem, and also the talkback problem and the Nickelodeon's app development problem. In all these cases, what is the common denominator is that the root problem seemed something else at first. However, on a deeper look, the problem always almost seemed to be something really different. And that really was determinant in the success of the companies as well. It may look very uh, isolated or divorced from what you are studying or from your own domain, but trust me, when you go to software companies tomorrow, what really distinguishes a good software developer from a great software developer is their ability to think 360-degree on a problem. Because that is what your employees are also seeking for, because that is where innovation and creativity really comes up, when you really think about what you're solving and really immerse yourself in what you're doing. And the software project that you're doing is a good opportunity to have a rehearsal for that kind of environment. Questions do not always get readily solved. They always bring up with themselves confused situations, conflicting situations, but they are opportunities to deeper clarity of the problem. And this is one thing I always say, it's dangerous to think that you can figure out all the solutions in the confines of your university classes. You really need to discuss among your family members, your siblings, about the problems that you're working on, and I can guarantee you that they will provide you a very fresh perspective that you may not have even thought of, and that will automatically improve the work or the software that you are developing. And definitely, reframing does not just end at reframing, you have to test also. So when you reframe a problem, create a solution, you test whether the solution is really effective or not. So it doesn't really stop at reframing, but reframing a problem is a very crucial aspect. And I hope you can appreciate that, bringing outside it into the discussion, asking what is missing, trying to see from different perspective, and really talking among your team members, trying to gauge their understanding of the problem are really fruitful in the long-term development of the solution that you will be working on together. And from your software projects, I do not expect something very niche, something very polished or finished product. I'm simply looking for a prototype, POC. And my major focus, as it has always been, will be on the thought process you have deployed in creating that solution. I am more hungry to look for the thought process you have used in designing or in solving your problems, because that is at the core, and definitely the way it looks comes later. But from the prototype and POC, I don't expect a full-fledged software from you, but yes, a POC or a prototype which can show me your thinking as a team, the quality of your thinking. I think that is what I will be seeking also in your project. So it's not about the decoration aspect of it, but the quality of your thinking, which will be manifested in your solution. So that was about reframing of the problem. So in these 2 weeks, I hope we got a fresh perspective on the importance of understanding a problem, the right problems, reframing the problems, trying to look at from a broader perspective, becoming detached from the problem and then trying to look at it. So I hope I was able to trigger you into thinking that software engineering is basically about problem solving, but problem solving at a much more complex level where multiple things are interacting with each other. And when we work at that level, solutions do not come easy. A lot of thinking is involved. And in our upcoming lectures, we will be beginning to get warmed up in the software engineering terminologies, software development life cycles. And as we proceed, uh, the content of the lectures has been designed in such a manner that you can actually use them while working on your projects. So it's both a mix of theoretical and practical learning. If you use what we are discussing in our lectures, definitely your understanding of the concepts and the way you approach the problem will definitely improve. So if you have any questions, any confusions, I hope the central message of the lecture is still intact with you. And you remember to do this homework to find out the success and failure rates of software in the world and what are the causes behind it. And I just want to know if you were able to read the 2 website articles that I had shared last time on the classroom. Were you able to read them? Okay. So mostly after each lecture, sometimes I will share some reading material. So try to go through that. And so the idea is always you attend a class, you read the theory, you go back to your projects, and you see how do I apply that, what I have learned in the lecture in my software projects. Even the assessments that I have decided for you, they will all be application based. Though they will be based on theory, but they will be situation based. So I will give you a particular situation and you will have to come out of answer for that. So it will really push you to think, not to remember. So the assessments will not be about your ability to remember things. It will be about your ability to apply what you have read. And so that will be replicated and I think be seen in all your assessments so that you can really appreciate